Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I see you guys chatting it up. It's good to always sign on and see you chatting. I was supposed to start at 7:45, then I switched it to 7:50, then I switched it to 7:55, and I'm here at 8 o'clock. So I'm sorry about that. You know how life can be. You plan something and then something comes in and misdirects you or redirects you. But glad to see you all. Hopefully there's no tech issues. It looks like my mic is okay. Let me know if you guys can hear me or anything weird is going on. So far, so good on my end. So let's go ahead and jump in, guys. This conversation about the psychology of a broken family is complex. And anytime I talk about this topic, when I go to a conference or, I'm doing some kind of meeting, where there's adults who have grown up in households where there's nothing but negativity, there's nothing but insecurity, instability. They grew up in a home where they couldn't really trust anyone, they couldn't really depend on anyone. Anytime I talk about this in a group of adults like this, there's either crying or a light bulb moment, or if none of those things happen, neither of the two happens, then they walk away with this feeling of grief and this feeling of loss. Because when you really look at the psychology of a broken family, you're really delving under the soil, under the dirt and the foundation of the family to really understand, why is this family like this? Why is it that Kelly's family across the street looks so good? Why is it that Jimmy's family, down the street, up around the corner seems to be wonderful? Why is it that when I grew up, all the friends that I had good families except me? When you start looking at that foundation, it's painful, right? What I want to highlight in tonight's live chat is, what is a fractured family? What is a broken family? Is it similar to family estrangement? And if so, in what ways? And what are the things that kind of underlies these severed ties, these severed bonds and connections? Because that's really what it is over time. It's a family that consists of a variety of individuals, sometimes multiple cultures, like in my family, and various ages, right? It's a family made up of individuals, but it's something about each individual that makes this family broken. Everybody contributes to the brokenness, or there's a few bad eggs in the family who just continues the cycle of intertransmission or intergenerational problems, and you can't escape from it. You can't get away from it. Now, let me highlight something that research highlights when we talk about these topics, which is something known as reality shifting. Reality shifting happens in broken families. Reality shifting is really the experience of hearing a family member say something, promise something, do something, or maybe I should take out the do something. They say something, they mention something, they have a conversation about something, they really do convince you about something, and yet when it's time to act, it never happens. So the reality contradicts the action. The person's conversation with you, speech, promises, intentions, all of that, verbalizations of intention, I should say, right? I promise I'm going to do A, B, and C, or I really want to be a better dad, or I'm really going to be a better mother. Okay, that can happen. But reality shifting takes place in these broken families when you say something, but your action contradicts exactly what you said. And I see this a lot in psychotherapy with the families that I have. I'll give you an example from a session that I held a couple weeks ago. I had a son who came in with his father. His father is otherwise a great dad. The issue here, and I had to refer this family because they had way more issues than a private practice can manage, but dad seemed like a really decent dad on paper. He was working for a university. He was the president of a university. Actually, he was the president of one university, and then he was supervising several other departments in the university at a different level. So he really had a powerful position in the university. Highly respected gentleman. I guess you could say he's young. He's 53 years old. Really seemed to have his heart for his family, right? Divorced. He's dating someone, but she seems to be very stable. Son is really stable. He's in college and he's majoring in pre-law. He's doing really good. Okay, so this family, dad and son, came into therapy with me. They seem really focused on healing and therapy. During the session, however, the son brings up dad's alcoholism and dad's overuse of marijuana. Dad, a couple days before the session, was pulled over by the police because he got a DUI. He had a warrant out for his arrest. He already had a DUI, and he was pulled over again a few days before the session with me for another driving while under the influence. And I think it was like 2 grams of marijuana was found in the car. He was arrested, taken to jail, fined, given a court date. His court date hadn't shown up yet. But when his son sat down to talk to me during that session with dad, he looks at his dad and he says, "Dad, you have a problem. And I don't know how else to share this with you. And it's tearing the family apart. You and mom have been divorced now for 5 years, and you're still drinking. You're still doing marijuana. And you mix the two in addition to your prescription meds," which he had prescription medication for high blood pressure. And the son starts crying. He says, "Dad, please go get help. You need help for marijuana use. You're addicted. You need help for alcoholism. You're addicted. We need you in this family." And dad looks at his son and says, "So you mean to tell me I can't have fun? You want me to just cancel all my engagements on the weekends? Is that what you're asking me?" The son says, "No, Dad, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm saying you are not able to function like you're supposed to because you get high and drunk at the same time. You end up getting in trouble with the law every time you get behind the wheel and you drive." He says, "You ran into your garbage cans. I saw it on the surveillance camera when you were coming in Friday night." He's like, "Dad, you need to grow up." And this is a 20-year-old young man, mind you. He's very mature. And so dad looks at him and says, "You know what, son? I know I have a problem. I've been doing marijuana for 12 years. I've been doing alcohol for 10. He says, "I know I have a problem." He looks at his son. He starts crying. His son reaches out and hugs him. They're doing those man hugs, patting each other. And it really felt and seemed like a genuine communication between father and son during the therapy session. And I said, "You know what? How about we come back for a second session? I think I want to refer you guys for a higher level of care. But you guys are wonderful. I'll see you next Tuesday at this time," that whole thing. As soon as dad left, okay, and the son, 4 hours, literally 4 hours later, so we're talking 1 a.m., son texts me, "Dad just got in a car accident. He was drunk. And the police took him to jail for 1 gram of marijuana, 2 grams of marijuana, something like that." And I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Just stay in a safe place, call the police. I'm trying to guide him." It was the saddest thing. Why? Because dad was in a pattern of what psychology calls an intergenerational cycle of problems. His dad was a problem. His grandfather was a problem. He is a problem. And his son is trying so hard to break that cyclic generational tie that keeps them bound. But it's really hard. Dad has not only fractured the family, severed ties, bonds, and connections, but he is estranged from his own mom, his own mother, who's narcissistic. So this is the son's grandmother. He's really taken the family through a series of challenges. Why? Because he is engaging in reality shifting. What he says contradicts reality. What he says and promises contradicts his behavior. And on top of that, he continues to sever ties in the family because of his continual behavior of abuse, neglect, challenges, right? And his substance abuse. He can't get a hold of this. Now, this is the foundation of reality shifting. This is an example of what this is. Let me give you just another brief example of reality shifting. Let's say, for example, your mother's a narcissist. She's very grandiose. She believes she's better than everybody. She believes she has everything that she needs in life, right? She's very arrogant, very self-invested, which was the word I used yesterday. So very self-centered, for lack of a clinical term, very egotistical. You go to your mom, you say, Mom, can you please help me? I just need a loan. I need to buy a car so I can get to work, so I can pay off this loan, and so I can keep my mortgage going. Mom, can you just help me out? And, let's say your mom says, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you say, come on, Mom, I just need this loan, $10,000, and I promise I'll give it back to you, right? Your mom says, okay, don't worry about getting it back to me. You can just pay me a little bit over time. How about I loan you $10,000 for the next 5 years? You pay me back within 5 years. You're so happy and elated, right? You and Mom make a deal. She sends the money to you online through Zelle, and you look in your bank account, you see $10,000. You go ahead and pay your mortgage, your car note, the list goes on. The next day, Mom calls you. How did things go, son? Did you get the money? You say, yeah, thanks so much, Mom. I put the rest of the money in the bank. I'm going to go ahead and invest that a little bit. I'll pay you back over the next 5 years, and you won't be sorry. Your mom may say, excuse me, did you just say 5 years? You say, yeah, I said 5 years. No, I didn't. When did I tell you could pay over 5 years? When did I say that? When did that come out of my mouth? And you may say, Mom, you said it to me before you gave me the money, before you sent it through Zelle. And she may come back at you and say, I just don't recall that, son. You do this every time. You manipulate. You take advantage of everything that I give you. And there you go, right? An example of reality shifting. It's, I say something to you and I give you my word and it sounds like I'm genuine, but don't count on it because I'm going to shift. And my shift is going to throw you off balance. And you're not going to know what happened to you. And you're going to be in a state of complete emotional and psychological shock. And a lot of adult children of these kind of families and parents go through this. This is a fractured family. Now, let me also say too, this is important. There's a term known as unintentional abuse. Unintentional abuse. I bring this up a little bit on my channel every now and then. And I've done some articles in the past for different agencies on unintentional abuse. And anytime I do these topics on unintentional abuse, guess what, guys? I get so much pushback. Why? Because a lot of people say unintentional, that's the word that hangs them up. They're like, unintentional. Who says abuse is unintentional? But hear me out on this, guys. Abuse can be unintentional. How? You can have a very loving parent, like the dad I just told you about, who really wants to do what's right. In their heart, they want to do what's right. But can they do what's right? Probably not. Why? Well, they don't have the resources. They don't have the emotional and cognitive resources to be the kind of family or parent that you need them to be. Emotional resources, I don't have the empathy. Emotional resources, I don't really feel sorry for you. Emotional resources, I don't have the emotional stimulation that I need to get me going in the direction that you need me to go in. That's what I mean by emotional resources. I don't have within my heart everything that I need to give you when you need it. Cognitive resources, I don't have the cognitive ability to sit and listen to you, to give you cognitive empathy, to really show that I understand what you're going through. I don't have those cognitive and emotional resources. So what happens? Well, then you become unintentionally abused by this person, right? This son who has a dad who's addicted to marijuana, addicted to alcohol, he is really abusing his children. He's emotionally abusive. He's verbally abusive. He's gotten in many fights with his 20-year-old son. He's gotten into many fights with his ex-wife. So he's very abusive, but it's unintentional in the sense that he doesn't intend to harm anyone. He also doesn't intend to become a ferocious beast. But when that marijuana and that alcohol gets in his system right along with his prescription drugs, which this is something I told him, and I verbalized to him in that session, you shift. You become a different person. Whether, marijuana is legalized or not, it's a drug. It affects your behavior. It changes the chemistry of your brain. It changes your behavior. It changes you. There's a reason why people like marijuana. There's a reason why people like alcohol. It changes you. It shifts you, right? And some people say, oh, well, I'm calm on it. It makes me really subdued. Well, so you think, right? You're under the influence. So do you really know what you're like? Because your calm may be somebody else's terrorism, right? So I said all of this to Dad, and Dad just broke down in tears. And he's like, I never thought of it this way. I never saw it that way. He's like, anytime I do marijuana, even if I don't use the alcohol, I'm angry the next day. I'm just ferocious the next day. So he started opening up, but the problem continued. And so did he really want to be an abusive dad? No. It was unintentional abuse. He just couldn't stay away from the marijuana. He couldn't stay away from the alcohol. And he definitely needed his blood pressure medication, so he couldn't just toss that, So this poor dad was just stuck. Another example of unintentional abuse could be teenage pregnancy. Let's say your mom had you at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18. She wasn't ready, right? She has you, and now you guys are growing up together. But as you grow up together, sadly, things become a little bit all over the place because she's not ready to be a mom. She's not even ready to be a woman. She's not really ready to be an adult. So you crying for hours in your crib and she being knocked out tired because she's trying to be a mom at too young of an age while working and going to school, that's unintentional abuse. Having a mother who, really sets out to do what they need to do as a sturdy parent, they're trying, they're going to school, they're working, so forth and so forth. The unintentional abuse could be, I put you in daycare and then I bring you home and I don't have conversations with you. I don't build your mind. I don't expand your thinking. I don't engage you. That's unintentional abuse. Not having the resources cognitively, emotionally, and literally not having the resources is unintentional abuse. Let me also say before I go to the chat box, because I see you guys chatting up, let me also mention two other things that we need to think about in tonight's live chat is that in these kind of broken families, when the family system is not able to continue in a way that's kind of sustainable. So the family may be broken, but the broken family still knows how to connect every now and then. The broken family knows how to come together during funerals. It knows how to come together during holidays, birthdays, vacations. My extended family was like that for a very long time. We knew how to come together during a loss, a grief, a death in the family. But after that, it's like, okay, see you in the next 3 years or when somebody else dies. That's my extended family. But in these kind of families, there's often a new normal that's created, but it's abnormal. The new normal, in quotation marks, really is an abnormal state of existence because it's not healthy. A new normal in a broken family may be, we allow mom to get drunk every Friday and Saturday as long as she stays sober Monday through Thursday. We allow mom to get drunk because she needs to be drunk because she's cranky all weekend. And we know how she's going to be when the work week starts. She's going to be a mess. So everybody, be quiet, doesn't say anything. We just let mom get drunk. And then mom's back to mom on Sunday night. That's a new normal for some broken families, but it's very abnormal. Another example of a quote unquote new normal could be, my sister is a prostitute. I watch her son when she's out prostituting. I had a family that told me this. I let my sister These were her words. I let my sister go out and earn money. And I said, oh, does she Uber or what's her job title? She says, no, she doesn't Uber. Then she got really quiet and I'm like sitting in my chair like, okay, I'm waiting on the next thing. And she says, she is a stripper. She's a prostitute. And she looks at me like, okay, are you happy? And I said to her, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That is not a life that any woman should live. It's dangerous. It's irresponsible. It's apprehensible. It's, I'm going down a whole list. And she's like, I know, but she can't go to school. She has severe ADHD and doesn't want to take medication. She's been doing drugs since the age of 12. I have her 5-year-old son, and she's pregnant now, 2 months pregnant. And I can't let these children be on the streets. She says, I watch my 5-year-old nephew, and I will be watching the new baby when he arrives. And that's the new normal for her family. But is it normal? Oh, no. It's very abnormal, but it's normal for her family. In broken families, keep in mind that parents who are typically immature or detached, they tend to not give their children over time, even as they hit adult age, they typically don't give them nourishment of the mind during developmental stages. You have to be nourished, in your mind as an infant. How are you nourished psychologically as an infant? You're rubbed by your mom. You're hugged and kissed, right? You're hugged, you're held, you're rocked, you're soothed, right? You're rocked or you're soothed. You have to, so that's one developmental stage. You have to be psychologically and emotionally nourished during early childhood development, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Age 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to be reading stories with your mom and dad. You have to be listening to people talk in the home. You have to have some stimulation for the brain. 13 years old, you have to have that developmental nourishment of the mind. Parents who are unintentionally abusive, or they're really leading a very broken family, a severed and fractured family, they don't nourish the mind. Even when you're 20, the parents should still be nourishing your mind. How is that? Teaching you things, guiding you, giving you wisdom, right? I was 32 years of age, full-blown career, very well designed career, and I was doing very, very good at the age of 30, 32. But when I would turn off my office lights, lock the door, drive home, I would sit with my mom and sit with my grandma, and I would drink all the nourishment they would give me through their life experiences, through listening to their conversations, to learning from grandma, my guy, I call her, and my mom. And that was age 32, age 33, age 34, age 35, and you have to be nourished by that parent as a child, adolescent, or adult child. And parents of a broken family, a severed and fractured family, they don't do that. They just push you out there into the world, or they party and live it up on their side, right? Or they are so sociable that they totally neglect you. So you don't get that nourishment. You just don't. There's a lack of healthy dependency in these families. There should be a little bit of dependency, I think, between family members in a healthy family. There's a dependency on our parents all the time. Yeah, we pay our own mortgage, rent, we work, we have our own marriage and relationships, we have children, right? We do whatever we want to do as adults, but there should be a little bit of dependency on mom. What's that dependency on mom and dad? Well, dad, I just need to hear your voice every day. Mom, I just need to hear your wisdom every other day. Grandma, I need to depend on you just a little bit here. Can you tell me how to fix my marriage, right? Brother, sister, there has to be a little bit of a healthy dependency. In these broken families, there's no healthy dependency. There's often an unhealthy dependency, a toxic dependency, a counter dependency. Remember, we talked about that recently. There's also a codependency. It's not a healthy dependency. So these families struggle, right? And when we kind of break it down, like I'm breaking it down in tonight's live chat, it gets a little bit sad, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, guys, let me go to the chat box. I do want to wrap up in a good enough time before 9 p.m. Eastern time. So I will try to make this a succinct chat tonight. I want to give you some common issues within these families that you may have experienced. I also want to talk about some of the research that's on this topic. We have ongoing research because this is a large area of study. And then I want to give you what may happen to you if you've emerged or are still in a broken family. So we're going to get to that. Okay, chat box. Pink Meadows, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Always glad to see you. Cat Sushi, good to see you back tonight. Welcome. Lore Fit, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. I love what Cat Sushi says. Cat Sushi says, it is comforting and grounding to spend time with like-minded people like the Tam Fam live chat community. Oh, that's so awesome. And I very much agree. You guys are very much like minds. It's such a blessing to see. Daima, hello and welcome. Oh my God, it's almost 3 a.m. Daima, you should be asleep. I hope you're asleep. Don't stay up as late as I do. Tooth Sloth Jules, hello and welcome. Good to have you and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Good to see you. Yeah, Diamond, you're right. I did propose yesterday some kind of personality test. Everybody was asking for it. So it's not going to happen in tonight's live chat. I'm pondering how I can ethically do that. And I think there's a way. I just need to make sure that I can actually do that with you guys, and I'll be happy to. Empowered Woman, hello. Good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Good to see you back. Mark Lee, hello. Thank you so much. You guys are really great too. Thank you. That's awesome. Welcome back. I'm glad to see you back. All right, let me go through this. Tooth Sloth Jules is so smart. Tooth Sloth Jules says, just pop dinner in the oven. Oh my God, I know, right? I'm so hungry. I've been working all day in my, at my house. You know how you look out in your garden and you're like, oh my God, that needs mulch. That needs more potting soil. That over there needs to be hosed down. Why is the bird cage upside down? You know what I mean? So yeah, I've been working all day, so I'm really hungry. Orlando, good to see you. Welcome back in tonight's live chat. Breezy, trying to figure out hello and welcome. Good to see you back. Dawn One, good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Okay. Fairy Girl, hello and welcome with the dabs. Always glad to have your spirit in the chats. All right, guys, I'm looking for comments. Rochella, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. And Ellie Wynn, good to see you. Last night I was cracking up at something you said. I was looking at something you said in the chat box. I can't remember what it is. I was cracking up at you. Patrick Black, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Says, a shout out to you, Tamara. We appreciate you so much. We traumatize people will prosper. Oh, that's so sweet. And I think we will prosper 100%. And I say we because I have my own traumas, just from death and loss in my family and, work issues, right? Kind of being traumatized by the kind of work that I do. So I definitely understand that. So I think in some ways, even when I teach this, there are times when I come back and I say, you know what, that kind of applies to me in some ways. You know what I mean? So I think we're all healing when we have these conversations. So glad you feel that way. MS, hello. Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet. Good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Sizzle, hello. Phoenix, good to see you both. Okay, I'm looking for... Orlando says another video about me and my family. Oh my goodness. Orlando, I'm starting to feel bad about that. Okay. However, you're probably in the right place if that's the case. So glad to have you. Actually, Jovial, hello and welcome back tonight. So glad to see you. All right. I'm looking for comments, guys. Steph Roberts, hello and welcome to the channel. Glad to have you. Steph Roberts says, with narcissists, we call that future faking. Very common. Yeah. That's a good point. Actually, Jovial says, reality shifting. I've done this to someone I love. Oh, I wish I could turn back the hands of time. I know, right? Sometimes you look at that and you say, oh, that hurts. That was me. And that is healthy because really what you're doing is being honest and realistic with yourself. And you're saying, you know what? I can hold this truth and say that this was me, and then I can fix this and shift this in the future, because I dare not let that happen again. You know what I mean? I totally get that. Laura Fitz says there is a lot of future faking promises that will never happen. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Anthony Incognito, hello and welcome back. Good to see you. Laura O'Neill, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Welcome back. Laura O'Neill says ACES reports that 64% of our entire population comes from childhood abuse. Yep. And or neglect. Most people refuse to admit what their family of origin dynamic is, or they just keep it secret. Sometimes, or guess what? You ready for this? Sometimes they don't know it's trauma until they see a channel like mine. And then they come and they chat and contact me via email, sometimes call my office, sometimes put in a chat box. Oh my God, this sounds like my family. And then it's like a light bulb moment goes off. And then they say, you know what? That's true. That's true. I did have a traumatizing childhood. Sometimes you don't know it's traumatizing until you see somebody else's family, or you can compare, or you come onto channels like mine, or you go to a therapy session and your therapist kind of opens reality for you, Let me actually do this as a courtesy for you guys. I'm going to actually post the ACEs questionnaire for you. And that way you can go ahead and take it. So I'm actually going to do that right now for you guys. Post, and then I'm going to put ACEs questionnaire. Hopefully I spelled questionnaire right. There you go. And then you guys feel free to take the ACEs questionnaire and maybe post in the community section, the comment section, after this live chat goes off, post what your score is. It's pretty easy to do, and it may give you some insights about your own life. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay. Phoenix says, I call this future faking. They act like they believe what they're saying, but if you challenge them, it's another story. I got let down by so many people this way. When you're in need, you find out. Yeah, that's so true, right? That's so true. Oh, I'll be there when you need me, right? Just call me and I'll help you. Text me and I'll be right there. And it never happens. Yeah. Yeah. Kat Sushi brings up a good point. Kat Sushi says, when you call them out of the dysfunctional family dynamics, my family loves to say all families are like this. Yeah, absolutely. You know why, Kat Sushi? If you can blend, you can minimize. If you can blend, you can minimize. And I hate when families do that. They come into session for family sessions and they say, all families have problems. I had a mom look at her daughter and say, all families have problems. And I said, they do. They do. I agree. But then she went a step further and said, and all families are abnormal. No. Mm-mm. And I could hear the tire screeching, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, all families do have problems, but not all families are abnormal. So let's not do that. So, I took that moment to just kindly and compassionately educate her that while it may feel in the moment more comfortable to affirm your hope that all families are abnormal, that is not the truth. Some families have problems, but they are not abnormal. Not all families have predators in them. Not all families have child sexual abuse in them. Not all families have alcoholics and drug addicted individuals. Not all families have incest in them. So let's not go there, because we can go a step further and say the psychology of what you said shows a lot about your own fear, that your family is abnormal and you can't really tolerate that, So you're right, Katsushi. People will say that, and I hear that a lot in psychotherapy. Coral Sky, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Okay, I'm continuing on. Bear with me, guys. G-Nog, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back tonight. Says reality shifting. They'll say they love you, but none of their actions align with any loving behavior. Yeah, that's so very true. So very true. Think about a husband that says to his wife, I'm sorry, I can't believe that, I let her pull me in. I shouldn't have had this affair. I know I'm wrong. I just couldn't resist her. But you're the only one I truly love. I would never hurt you. I hear this all the time in therapy too. I would never hurt you. That was my past person. That was my past behavior. I'll never do it again. Please trust me. Next weekend, he's out drunk with another woman, right? Happens all the time. All the time. Trying to figure it out. Breezy says, did I welcome you, Breezy? I don't know. Welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Welcome back. Breezy says, my dad stole my prescriptions when I was 20 years old, in my early 20s, excuse me. And my mom illegally called my doctor. Then when time came for appointment, I was completely cut off from fentanyl patches, narcos, etc. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Because a doctor is likely going to be like, oh, so you're abusing them? Okay. Or, somewhere you're going to get blamed, my camera is a little bit, sorry guys. There we go. Okay, it was a little blurry. I apologize for that. The good glow, hello, bonjour to you. Did I say that right? Good to see you back. Thank you. I appreciate that honor. I really do. Thank you. Exotical tea. Hello. I might steal that name. Hello, welcome. Glad to have you and glad to have you on the channel. Okay. Still looking for comments. Bear with me. Teneblis Abysmos. I probably always mess that up. Hello, hola to you. Glad to see you. Buenas noches. Glad to see you tonight. That means good evening for those of you who are not aware of what that means. I know you guys know what that means. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't think that. Good to see you. Welcome. W. Me Chen. I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. W. Me Chen says, I am the eldest, age 59, and my toxic divorced parents never changed the toxic patterns. Fact, a generational curse. Too late for me to end the pattern. My 2 children might have released some of it. Ooh. That's difficult. Keep in mind that there is some research that suggests that younger generations can stop that generational and transgenerational problems, trauma, challenges, mindsets, the list goes on. Each younger generation has an opportunity to change it. My family has intergenerational trauma. For those of you who have somehow in some way may have read my book from New Harbinger Publications, the Racial Trauma Handbook for Teens. It's not for adults, it's for teenagers. You will find some of my own upbringing kind of mixed in there. And I talk about the different bloodlines and the different cultures and the different experiences. And intergenerational trauma was one for me and my family. I think there's been intergenerational trauma on both sides of my family for many generations. But when it came to my generation, my older brother, my generation, and my younger brother, we broke that. Even my cousins, they broke it. And we broke the curse through, I think, taking a different road. We all kind of over dedicated ourselves to education. It was like my mom, my uncle, my brother, we were all just very, very dedicated. And there was no dating, for me at least. No partying, no alcohol, nothing. I was in the books 24/7 because I wanted to break that curse. And by the grace of God, I think that has happened. And even for my cousins, they're successful, my brothers. But you can break that curse. You just, as I always say to you guys, when it comes to intergenerational trauma, you just have to, in a small way, tighten up those boundaries so that you can shift the dynamic. Sometimes tightening up of the boundaries is going to school, avoiding drugs and alcohol, avoiding parties, avoid possible pregnancy and, avoiding all those things that derails people's lives. You know what I mean? So you can break the curse, but, you really have to dedicate yourself to doing that. It's hard work. Gary Bennett, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Gary Bennett says, I take weed for pain, have been for 40 years to manage my cerebral palsy. Yeah, that's really tough, right? And other associated problems like atherosclerosis. Ooh, yeah. But I function and think better. Yeah, some people claim they do, and some people believe they do. Do you guys remember Montel Williams? Is it Montel Williams or is it Montel Jordan? I can't remember. He's a television show host. He used to be when I was growing up in the 1990s, late 1980s, early 1990s. And I remember my mom talking to my stepfather, her husband at the time, and she said to him, she's like, Montel, I think it was Montel Jordan. I don't know, Montel Jordan, Montel Williams. Anyway, she was like, he uses marijuana for his multiple sclerosis, but he looks different. He became more thin. He started looking like he was high, and it's like you smoke so much marijuana, you take so much marijuana that over time it starts to kind of show up. And he did change. Like he became thinner, he started looking older. Some people definitely need it, but it still takes a toll on you. And it's a sad reality. Even if you're using prescription medication, you can change over time. It's just the world of drugs, medication. That's just how it is. Rochella says, I think my mom is unintentionally abusive. She doesn't have the resources. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Yeah. This screen name is going to be tough, but I'm going to welcome you. Hello, and glad to have you on the channel. Welcome. Okay, this viewer, I wish I could make that out. My goodness, says, I am the youngest of 5, but since I'm clinically disabled, I am bound to family. There's definitely enmeshment and emotional immaturity, but there's also where I was mostly infantilized. Yeah, ooh, that's rough. I'm so sorry. When there's a clinical disability, a medical disability, or even like Gary Bennett, you have these conditions that really can take your life from you. It's a hard reality, right? And there's grief and loss in trying to live in a broken, dysfunctional family while you're trying to heal and feel better and cope, right? So that can be a very depressing reality. For those of you who aren't sure what infantilization is, infantilization is really when a child has been murdered or harmed in a way that's irrevocable. If we talk about, I can't think of the name that it is. It's, let's say, for example, there's a mom. I'll throw an example out there. There's a mom who has postpartum depression. She's having thoughts of killing her child. And at night, she goes into her infant's room, suffocates her infant. The infant dies, but it's blamed on something else, or mom does go to jail for a very long time. We as professionals will call that infantilization. Infantilization. Something terrible has happened to the infant or the child. M and Odell, hello and welcome tonight. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I think in some ways this is controversial as well. M and Odell says some people react with a drug-induced psychosis to marijuana. Add in alcohol and you have a mess. That's so true. Drug-induced psychosis I saw at one time with marijuana, and it showed up differently than I thought. Let me just briefly give you a little bit of information on that, because sometimes marijuana use, alcohol use, any drug use, or overuse of even prescription drugs can sever the ties of a family. So I had a client who was a young lady, beautiful young lady, came from an Italian family, had a lot of vibe to her, a lot of soul, a lot of beauty, a lot of personality, we used to have sessions every Monday and every Friday, because this poor girl, she was 16, growing up in this very unstable Italian family. Everybody was just loud and angry. And, sometimes they would physically fight each other, but they were very passionate, about life and people and things. And so she brought that to her sessions. However, she met with a guy. I think she fell in love with the guy, even though he was not even worth falling in love with, but she did. And she needed him emotionally and physically at the time. She didn't have anywhere to live. She needed all the help that she could get. So she took him and he took her, and they tried to live a life together. He introduced her to alcohol, introduced her to marijuana, and she would come to sessions literally shaking like this. And sometimes I would ask her, why are you shaking? Are you okay? Are you having a panic attack? And she would say to me, no, I'm fine. And I would say, no, you're not fine. And she'd be shaking. Why? Because her body is craving the marijuana she didn't have the money to buy. Came back the next session, calmer, more focused, in control. Why? Because she had marijuana. Came to the next session, shaking again. Then she got thinner. Then she became gaunting, right? Then her hair started falling out. And this was the thing that scared me. She came to a session and she started convulsing, then she started vomiting. And the next thing I know, okay, she's passed out, no pulse. Remember, I told you I have career trauma. No pulse. I have to call 911, run upstairs in the building and try to get the guy on the top floor, because he was a medical doctor, to come down and check and make sure she's not deceased, that she's living, she's okay. He finally sits her up. We're waiting on the ambulance. He talks to her. She comes around. She's calling me Kimberly. She's calling him her dad's name. She swears we're her family. And then she tells the paramedics when they get there that I'm her sister. The medical doctor from upstairs is her dad. And she doesn't know how to get away from us because we've drugged her. This was the worst immediate and brief psychosis I have ever seen. It was very, very scary. Why? Because why did this happen? It was a marijuana-induced psychosis. And we had to diagnose her with a substance-induced psychosis. It was a very scary reality, and it happens more than we think it does. Jeremy Robinson. Let me just say, too, before I go to Jeremy Robinson and back to the content, that a substance-induced psychosis can also sever the ties and the bonds and the connections within a family. Why? Because anytime drugs and alcohol become a part of the equation, you're going to have a lot of family members who are angry. You're going to have a lot of family members who accuse you of things. You're going to have a lot of family members who are just going to be displeased, embarrassed, worried about you. The list goes on, So, drug and alcohol abuse can sever ties. I have a lot of families that come to me and say, my dad's an alcoholic, my brother's an alcoholic, and it breaks families apart. Jeremy Robinson, you're the last one before we go back to the content. Jeremy Robinson says, and welcome to the chat. Good to see you. I don't like drugs or alcohol. I learned that lesson as a kid. Yeah, me neither, Jeremy Robinson. That they are not good. The only drugs I did was prescription drugs for ear infections and for seizures, but I don't have any more. Yeah, absolutely. Good for you. That's awesome. That's wonderful. Okay. Common issues. Ready, guys? Psychology in the area, I'm going to say research in the area of family estrangement and severed ties within families. And I also see this in my clinical practice. These research studies highlight limited affection. There's always limited affection in broken families. How, well, mom doesn't hug me. Mom doesn't tell me she's proud of me. Dad doesn't spend time with me. My sister never smiles at me and engages me. We're often doing our own thing in different parts of the world or different parts of the home. And so life is changing. Life is stressful. Life is overwhelming because there's limited affection, and that can take a toll on you. And it can really make you feel unloved and invalidated. So limited affection. There's also violation of trust and violation of honesty. That is also often highlighted as a family issue. There is also this cycle of anger and hostility within these broken and severed families. There's hostility often at the core of a broken family. That's why it's a broken family. No one talks about their emotions. No one explores their thoughts and feelings. It's just, everybody kind of does their own thing and blocks things or minimize things or invalidates things. And so nobody gets a chance to really talk. Alliances and coalitions happen. A coalition, two people get together and they come against another one. Mom and dad, who are both narcissists, coming against you. That's a coalition. Or grandma and grandpa, or my sister and my brother coming against me, coming against you, on something. It could be anything. An alliance could be, we're all coming against you because we all stand together on this one topic when it concerns you. We all think you need psychiatric treatment, that it's not us. So we're going to all come to you, kind of do an intervention, so to speak, and we're going to say that you're the problem. You need therapy, So coalitions and alliances. There's often excessive criticism and excessive demands in these kind of families as well. you know. Excessive demands could be, I demand that you get good grades, go off to college, get married to a guy that can help you or a woman that can help you, save your money, buy $1 million home. The list goes on. I'm demanding your attention here and your dedication. You are going to go to college. I have parents who do that, and I understand it. But is it overwhelming? Yes. Not everybody needs to go to college to be successful. But I do know parents who say, I demand that you listen to me. And if you're going to be under my roof, my demands are going to be heard. You're going to go to college. You're going to do this. And excessive criticism. Why are you dressed that way? Why do you like that? What about this song attracts you? When did you start dating him? When did you start dating her? Excessive criticism could also be, you know what? You are very much like your father. I never wanted to say this, but you are like your father. You don't listen, you're hard-headed, and there you go. You know what I mean? Preferential treatment, favoritism. I did a live chat on favoritism. I'll try to post it in the description box for you guys at the end of this live chat. But preferential treatment is another one. I favor you over them. You're my everything compared to Bobby over there. Or Bobby's my everything compared to you. Cyclic conflict that just, it's like a cycle, happens every holiday, every funeral, every birthday, every other week, every Friday. Cyclic conflicts. Academic challenges. A lot of people that I see for therapy, or a lot of people just in the world, they don't go to college because they don't have that mental nourishment. They never got that nourishment from a family. So when you don't get the nourishment, then you say, you know what, the heck with academics. I'm going to drop out of school. I'm going to emancipate. I'm going to skip college. I'm not going to go to tech school. I'm just going to get a really good job and work, and that may be fine. But most people would rather stay in school, go to college, get educated, and then start their life, But sometimes having a really unstable, broken family leads you down this road of being unable to maintain academics. I know I wouldn't have been able to make it through 3 years of college, graduate early, 2.5 years of grad school, 3 more years of licensing, plus another year of internship, plus 2 more years of certification without my mom, without my late grandmother. I wouldn't have been able to do it, because my mind would have maybe been unnourished. It would have been focusing on all the wrong things in my world. I'm concerned about gossip and dating and partying and being social and looking cute, and you know what I mean? So we can kind of get caught up in that life when we come from a broken family, unfortunately. But I know I would not have been able to do all of that and spend almost 10.5 years in training, if you will, in education. So academic challenges is something that you're going to see on the ACEs questionnaire as well. It's something that happens a lot to people who come from these kind of homes. Strict intolerance, not tolerating that maybe you're a Christian, not tolerating that you're not really interested in Christianity or religion right now. You don't even know if you believe it. Being intolerant of how you're dressing, how you're looking, how your morals and values are. Intolerance is also something that affects families from many generations, even racial intolerance. I think in my family, in my extended family, because we all kind of look different. We come from different walks of life. We're raised differently from each other. There's different cultures within the family. I think in a lot of ways there's been intolerance in my family on both my father and my mom's side. And there was racial intolerance on my father's side of the family. So intolerance of race, intolerance of ethnicity, intolerance of culture, intolerance of just who you are, is also part of these broken families. And of course, I think a violation of trust is really the bigger issue in most of these families. It's, I can't talk to you because you're going to tell Nisi over there. I can't share the secret with you or how I feel about something because you're going to go over there and talk to somebody else. So violation of trust, I'm kind of going back to that for a second. Violation of trust is huge. It's a violation. Okay. And let me also mention too, post-divorce aggression and family violence are also issues that you are likely to experience in these broken families. Post-divorce aggression, domestic violence, fighting, going to court all the time, trying to sever the ties of the family through courts, kidnapping kids, refusing to bring them back home, parental alienation, turning the kids against their parents, talking negatively to the kids about their parents, right? So post-divorce aggression is also a major one, including parental alienation. Now, let me highlight what some of the research says for family estrangement. Family estrangement is a little bit different than a fractured family. A fractured family is broken. Family estrangement means you have your family here, but somebody, most likely you, has decided to go away. And that is going no contact because you feel that there's more benefit there than staying within your family. So a large study on family estrangement showed that parents are usually not the ones that go no contact. It's usually the children, the adult children in today's society who go no contact. Parents only go no contact, according to this large research study, with their children when they totally disapprove of your relationships. So your marriage, your dating, your friends, whatever. The relationships you hold often causes parents to walk away and shut the door. Other than that, in today's society, it's mainly adult children who are doing the family estrangement. They're walking away. And there are various stages of family estrangement. We may talk about that. Let me know if you want me to talk about that in the future. Some research also highlights something known as the 5 stages of grief and loss. You guys probably know what those 5 stages are. I'll go over them briefly. The 5 stages of grief and loss, can happen in these broken families because your family is severed, right? It's fractured. There's disconnection. There's no harmony and no unity. So what happens in a family like that? Well, BB stops talking to Cece. Kimberly is now, text messaging everybody and emailing everybody secrets that she has been told. Bo and Reese over there divorced. Grandma and grandpap no longer talk to the family, right? So everything is being, kind of severed little by little over time. And so you can find yourself in denial. That's the first stage of grief and loss. Then you can find yourself angry. That's the second stage. You can find yourself depressed. That's the third stage. You can find yourself bargaining. Some children or adolescents, they bargain. They say things like, God, if you just make my family better and whole again, I promise I'm going to go to church more often. So there's bargaining. Somewhere in our mind, we bargain with God or we bargain with ourselves or something, And then the fifth stage is acceptance. You may find that, yes, you were in denial, but now you're just angry and now you're depressed and maybe you've bargained in some ways. And now you're at a stage where you say, you know what? I accept that my family is severed. I accept that it is broken. I accept my mother will never be my mother. I accept my father is a substance abuser and he could care less about me. I accept it all. And that's the last stage. Notice they're called 5 stages, but it doesn't mean that you have to go through these stages one at a time. These stages can happen in various ways, depression, anger. Maybe bargaining was the first stage for you. Maybe you accepted things, but now you're back in denial. So these stages can shift. Okay, guys. Okay. Let me also say a broken family can also redirect you from that path of stability. And research backs this up. A broken family can redirect you from a path of stability. So you may find yourself, if you haven't already, been in a situation where you are incarcerated because you've gone down the wrong road. Maybe there's been years and years of substance abuse because of the broken family's impact on you. Maybe there's been hospitals you've been admitted to because your family has literally driven you insane. Or maybe a RTF is somewhere you were sent to as a child, maybe, or even as an adult. An RTF is a residential treatment facility. And I used to work in many of them before I got into private practice. And they're just holding cells. It's a really depressing place to be. But when the family is severed and broken, sometimes a residential treatment facility is the only place for hope, Okay, I'm going to go to the chat box, take a little bit of a break, and then I'm going to tell you what may happen to you because of these kind of challenging situations. Just today, hello and welcome. Glad to have you back in another live chat. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate you. Thank you. This is the screen name again that I can't read, but they ask a good question. They say, you mean they're actually supposed to nourish your mind? 100%. 100%. That's the duty of a parent. And some parents try to cut that short. Oh, you're going to be 18 next month. Adios. And I understand it, but I think the mind should be nourished by the parent until they can't nourish it anymore, or until that child says, okay, mom and dad, I'm good without you. Actually, Jovial says, this is why I would wish to be adopted. Somehow I knew I was missing this kind of nourishment. Yeah, I understand. I understand that. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Patrick Black 1 says brain doesn't fully develop until 25 scientifically. Absolutely. Yeah. Age 25 is when the brain fully develops and you have executive functioning in the frontal lobes. You have full functionality of all the different pieces of the brain that gives you the ability to process and learn and memorize and hold things in your memory. But when your brain is not fully developed, the life experiences up until the age of 25 can really impact you. Slow brain growth, traumatize you, turn you around. There's a reason why substance abuse discouraging commercials, they're trying to discourage you from using drugs and alcohol. They show you how detrimental drugs can be in alcohol. And there used to be puns or little clues that would show that if your brain is not fully developed, drugs are really going to disrupt everything. And there's some truth to that, Okay. Caleb Reed. Hello, my friend. I haven't seen you in a long time. Welcome back. Good to see you. Caleb Reed says the abuse is hard to deal with, but it's comforting that finding our own peace is a huge possibility and will happen for us. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you do have to wait until you become an adult to say goodbye. I just told one of my clients that last week. She's a wonderful young lady. I said, I'm so sorry your mom is this way. And I'm so sorry your mom is dating this kind of a guy, that unfortunately has a felony charge for child sexual abuse. And she brings the boyfriend around her daughter all the time. And guess what she says? She's 18. She can handle it. She's 18. She can leave when she wants. And I remember telling her, I'm so sorry you have to have a mom like this who's choosing him over you. But thankfully, as you're saying, Caleb Reed, there's hope. And so I told her, I said, there's hope for you. You're 18. Go get a job, save some money, move in with somebody else who's stable, and just run for your life, So there is hope. It's just finding that path that's really hard for some people. Trying to figure it out, Breezy says, couldn't depend on anyone. Yeah, I understand. Absolutely, I understand. Mark Lee says, my parents didn't drink. On that point, I was lucky. Yeah, the family was highly toxic, but I'm grateful for the good things. Absolutely. Absolutely. If a family is not, abusing drugs and alcohol, they're toxic. You have to kind of look at that and say, what's worse? And some people say both are bad. But I think when you throw drugs into the mix, it just gets worse, Gamzee, hello, welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat and welcome to the channel. Gamzee says, healthy self-nourishment when families are incapable. Yeah, you can self-nourish. I like that. Bryn McDonald, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Says currently going through the gauntlet of transference and attachment work. The feelings are so powerful, and I don't remember ever feeling that way towards my mom. I'm sure I did at one point. Yeah, I understand. When you start delving into that brokenness, right? And you start pulling things up, it is very painful, especially when your mind has kind of, and I'm not saying this is you, but some people are in these shoes. When your mind is fixed, it's fixed on life and achieving and surviving, how other people live their lives, and then you stop to do your own therapy work, it can really shake you. It can really shake you. Ellie Wen says heartbreaking, truly. Yeah, it is. I agree. The Good Glow says no nurturing growing up, but do remember post-it notes everywhere. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do that. I probably have trauma from the freaking post-it notes. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. It's like being a latchkey kid. The key is under the mat. Open the door, look at the refrigerator. There's a post-it note. Breakfast is here. Dinner is there. I'll be back at 2. I have a client whose mom just doesn't even do post-it notes. She like text messages every day. Excuse me, guys. I just need one sip of water. Excuse me. I feel so sorry for that kiddo because he comes and goes and all he has is this to connect he and his mom. Rochella says, so what do you suggest people do when someone doesn't have anyone in their family to depend on? That's a hard one for me because everybody is different. But if you were a client that came to me and you said, I don't have family, I don't have anyone to depend on, then my number one strategy for you would be to build your own self-reliance, right? Make sure that you are financially secure. Make sure that you are psychologically healthy. Make sure that you are emotionally secure. Make sure that you are physically secure, right? During that process of building your self-reliance, building your independence, then it's okay to look around you and say, who can I pull into my life a little closer that takes the position of a family member? Who can I pull into my life who is a healthy person that can help me succeed and who can love me and show me the good sides of myself and teach me things that I don't know? And a little bit over time, you kind of build your own internal strength, and you also kind of you build that family that you never had, and you can do that over time. If you are so blessed to find somebody that you love, admire, and can marry, then you can over time build your own family perhaps, and then that can become the new stage of life for you. There's many different ways of looking at this. Joanne Burrows, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back tonight. Yeah. You say for real. Yeah, I understand that. Phoenix says, I always want to interact with you in chat, but I can't ever pay attention to what you're saying and I miss a lot. So I'm going to try to start listening while you're live and comment at the end, I guess. I'm sorry, Phoenix. That's probably a good thing. Always glad to have you, though. Jamile Sense, hello and welcome. Glad to see you, and thank you for being a member on the channel. Welcome. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Miss Janine, good to see you. Welcome back. Miss Janine says, my parents worked and taught us, good life skills. They unintentionally abused us by arguing constantly. Thankfully, I tuned them out eventually and realized my worth of being happy. Yeah, absolutely. Good for you. Yeah, parents arguing all the time is the worst, right? And that is definitely, for some families, unintentional abuse. Excuse me. Tooth Sloth Jewel says, thank you. Enjoy listening to your streams. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad you're getting something out of them. Yeah. Actually, Jovial says, work is definitely traumatizing. Yeah. There's something that we professionals experience, and it's called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue. And it's like we're so compassionate and empathetic to a point where we are now numb. We're now traumatized. We call it vicarious trauma. We're taking on the trauma of our clients and patients. We are so compassionate and empathic that it breaks us down, and then we kind of become tired and exhausted, and then we have our own PTSD, and then we have to get our own treatment. Thankfully, I didn't have the vicarious trauma, but I will say that after 5 years of higher education, an internship, licensing, and getting certifications, dealing with traumatizing kids, traumatized kids, child abuse and neglect, low socioeconomic status families, um, lots of therapy and violent families. I have shared with you, I've worked with boys who have been in the juvenile justice system, in the criminal justice system. All of that was my early beginnings as a developing therapist. And when I did 5 years of higher education, came out, did a 2-year internship, came out, started working in a residential treatment facility with boys who were criminal. Everything they did in society was criminal. I had to take an entire year off. I took an entire year off from work to get certifications, to learn, grow, and heal, because I think I suffered compassion fatigue. I was burnt out, completely burnt out. So that can happen for you guys when you're dealing with a broken family, right? Dad was no good. Mom wasn't much better. Sister and brother were bad. This is you speaking, by the way. And hopefully you can relate to this. I grew up in a family over many, many parts of my development that was just broken, right? So let's say this is you. You can develop over time just burnout, right? I'm burnt out from just having to live in this broken family. So it can really take a toll on you. Yes, Ellie Wynn, I was cracking up. I don't know what you said, but I know I thought it was funny. It was 2 a.m. I'm like, forget it. I need to be up. I have to look through this chat box. I couldn't sleep. I didn't want to sleep. Sometimes you just need that me time. And I'm a night owl too. I come alive at night. So I'm just reading. And Ellie, when I saw your comment, I literally laughed out loud. Um, Give me 1 second. I thought I heard my mom up there. I'm just double checking. I don't want anything to be wrong tonight while I'm on YouTube. So, okay, everything's fine. Joanne Burrows says, how to break the code of silence. Yeah, when nobody wants to talk and work through things and there's like a stonewalling, it's really hard. And we can have a whole live chat on stonewalling. So, I might put that on the list, but it's hard to break the code of silence. You really do have to be strategic. So I don't want to jump into that because, that's going to take up the rest of live chats. I don't want to do that. All right, guys, I'm looking for more comments. Bear with me. That's so sweet. Caleb Reed, he says, my girlfriend helps a ton for me to fully heal. That's wonderful. I hope she sees that. That's so sweet. That's wonderful. Thank you, Phoenix, for all the hundreds. Nancy R., welcome back. Good to see you. Nancy says, my childhood trauma was normal. I didn't know anything about narcissism. Yeah, absolutely. You have to learn it over time, right? Orlando says, thank God for YouTube University. Oh my God. I'm not going to show my mom that. She says that all the time. What would we do without YouTube? I'm not going to show Orlando. Don't call it YouTube University. Oh my God. Let's say it's YouTube University when you're on the right part of YouTube. We'll put it that way. Because if you go down that rabbit hole of YouTube, some things are on my screen and I'm just scrolling through it at night. I'm like, how did the heck did this get on? What's the algorithm doing here? I don't want to watch this. What is this? You know? Regina Myers, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Thank you so much. Regina Myers says, very educational content. I like your channel. This content heals me mentally. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that's an honest blessing to hear you say that. Thank you. And I'm so glad that you are benefiting. All right, guys. Bear with me. I'm just trying to get one more person in before I go back to the content. We wrap up. W me Chin says, much love. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. Thank you for this resource. You're helping many by paying it forward. Follow you first interaction in chat. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. I'm glad to have you and glad to have you on the channel. Ronald Zion, breaking the curse. Yeah, we need to do that, right? Yeah, welcome back tonight, by the way. And CBs, you're my last one before I go back to the content. Hello and welcome back. All right, guys. So what may be happening here? What's going on? You come from a broken family. You have all that brokenness on the inside. Well, something known as the whirlpool of grief. Now, that's not my idea, but some research in psychology suggests that we all go through. Of course, we talked about the 5 stages of grief. So we all go through that. Most of us do. And we all experience moments in our life where there's ups and downs, there's corners to turn, there's ladders to climb, there's things to get over. The whirlpool of grief was developed by a psychotherapist who wanted to explain, and I can put the whirlpool of grief, actually, I'm going to post it. I'm going to post it in the comment section for you. The whirlpool of grief, I use a lot, and I use it a lot with my clients. Give me 1 minute while I pull it up. And I use it a lot because it's relatable. And really what happens with this whirlpool of grief is you go through really trying to understand this pain. I'm going to put whirlpool of grief. And I'm going to post the link for you guys. Go ahead and check that out. I'll post it again once we go off here in a little bit. But the whirlpool of grief really does highlight the ups and downs and the curves that we have to take and the bends we have to go around. And it's called the whirlpool of grief for a reason. You know, it's like being caught up in a whirlpool, and there's grief and there's pain and there's hurt and there's shock and there's this feeling of sinking. And so I think that we can say when you come from a broken, fractured family, the whirlpool of grief is something that can happen. The waves of life just kind of takes you where it is going to take you. And sometimes that's not a good place, right? And so then you have to deal with that reality and that pain and that trauma. But the whirlpool of grief is a good way, I think, to look at this. You can really get really kind of spun around in your world when you come from a family that's broken. You know, you can feel the deterioration over time. This is something that may happen as well. Maybe back in 1999, your family was very close, but now it's severed, right? So sometimes you can feel that separation, or you can feel those severed ties and bonds, or that deterioration of the family over time. And that's really painful. It's like a slow death, you know? When my late grandmother passed away in 2020, unexpectedly, she was so healthy. We didn't understand what was happening to her. But once she passed, I remember my mom and I going through all the family photos. We're trying to organize things, you know? And my mom and I were looking through these photos, and I see my grandmother. She has this big afro on, and, you know, she's doing a pose with her husband, and she's my grandfather, and she's spunky and cute and a little firecracker, you know. And then I look 15 years after that, my grandmother's a little older, and she's holding all her grandchildren in a picture. Then I see a young picture of my mom. I see my uncle and my mom standing together, you know, and it's like, that's amazing, that family tie. But what happened to it? It's like a little over time. My grandmother divorced my grandfather because he had an affair with their best friend. You guys who have been with me for a while, you know that story. You know, then another year happens and another thing happens and another thing. And I see the deterioration, even in the family photos. You see that deterioration over time. And so in a broken, severed family, whether that's through divorce, death, natural just separation, or just not having a close family, that deterioration can stay with you for a long time, and you do see it over time. You may also internalize this desperate need for love and security, you know? So everywhere you go, you're looking for a sister. Everywhere you go, you're looking for a brother, a parent, a surrogate parent. You just want that love and security. You may also see a false sense of reality or a false sense of self perception that's happening in your life. You know, it's a little hard to come from a broken, severed family and have glasses on that are straight. Glasses may be a little crooked, you know, but you're trying to see, but it's a little bit hard. So you may stumble a little bit and make wrong decisions and make mistakes, you know. Betrayal trauma. That's another thing that you're likely to see. I will try to post my podcast interview that I did with, I can't think of the name. I can't think of her name. I'm going to post her in the description box for you, or maybe in the comment section once this goes off. And once we log off, and you can learn a little bit about betrayal trauma and my interview where I talk about it and I break it down a little bit. But you're likely to experience betrayal trauma. You will also see a perpetuation of triangles, you know, in your life, in your relationships, in your family. Once you come from that broken, severed family that's fractured, and you know you're starting to see manipulation and triangulation and blaming and anger and hatred, it's really hard for you not to see that in other areas of your life. So you may become a little highly sensitive to triangles, and you may back out of them and say, you know what, I don't want that relationship, I don't want that friendship, I don't want that job, I can't stand to be trapped, you know. It's almost like a development of claustrophobia, if you will. You may also see intergenerational transmission of instability, you know, continue even far beyond you. You may bear children who are now falling into that intergenerational instability. You know, it's sometimes it's just part of the equation. And lastly, in this category, you may internalize and you may have growing up this idea that you are unlovable. And when you internalize that I'm unlovable, then you become defensive, then you become angry, then you become depressed, you know, and then you fall in life and you say, you know what the heck, I'm unlovable, nobody cares about me, nobody wants to be with me, right? Life is all about getting what you want. Life is all about, you know, getting what, you know, you desire. I'm going to push that person to get what I want. I'm going to be angry and hostile over there, you know. So you kind of become like this big old defense mechanism, you know. And that's a sad reality. This is depressing, right, guys? At the same time, it's a talk I don't see happening much on YouTube. So I think we need to have these kind of conversations. Stick with me until next. Stay with me in the upcoming week. I'm going to post a video on Monday night, like I've been doing for the past couple of months. I think that can be helpful just to kind of add more content and get you thinking. And the next Friday and Saturday, we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation then too. So join me then. All right, I'm going to go to the chat box briefly, and then we're going to wrap up, guys. Ronald Zion says, this is the best chat. Thank you so much, Ronald Zion. I'm so glad this is helpful. Jazz and Laughter says, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Good to see you back. Actually, Jovial says, I love the advice you just gave about breaking generational trauma cycles. You are such an inspiration. Thank you for your educated insights. Thank you so much. And that's so humbling to hear. I think we all need to realize that we can break those intergenerational curses. I don't think we're told that we can, right? So then you think you're bound to that cursed lineage, and you're really not. You're really not. Nancy R says, love that suggestion on how to break intergenerational curses. Thank you. That's awesome. Patrick Black One says, yes, Tamara, my sister and I didn't participate in destructive activities that would hinder our livelihood. Yeah, there you go. I like that. Well said. Aaron Mitchell, hello and welcome. Good to have you, and welcome to the channel. Yeah, thank you so much. Williams, yep. Ronald Zion says Montel Williams. There you go. There you go. That's what I was talking about. Farrago, I'm going to put your comment up on the screen. Patrick Black, don't even start that. Now the song is in my head. This is how, I'm not going to, please don't do that. That song is now going to be stuck in my head for the next couple of hours. All of you guys are giving me Montel Williams. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys are great. Thank you. Longevity Rituals, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Longevity Ritual says, I had the time wrong on my end. No, you didn't. I had to push it back and push it back and push it back. So it's probably my time. It was probably my fault. Okay. Ash Shakur Whitaker, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Welcome back. CB says, my mother's second husband always seemed calmer when he smoked marijuana. He raged when he wasn't high. There you go. Sometimes you're calm while it's in your system. It leaves, forget everything. It's over. Tinibus Ablias, I'm going to put your comment up just so people can see it. Chill Mill says, was this Italian family name Falcon by any chance? No. No. Marie B, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Okay. Farrah Girl, I'm going to put you up on the screen again so people can see you and see what you're saying. Okay. The technologist. Man, I like that technologist. I like the spelling. Yeah. Welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Welcome. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Sammy D, hello and welcome. Glad you tuned in. Good to see you. Jazz and Laughter, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. I don't know if I thanked you, and I've been meaning to do that. Thank you for becoming a member. I'm so glad to have you. Okay. Ooh. Wait a minute. YouTube, don't you start. We're on our way off now. Live Life, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. You've been missing in action for a little while. Chill Mail says, no pulses, wild. Weed and the licks don't do that often, if at all. I know, right? But she had a ton of marijuana. She smoked multiple times a day. That's what was scary. For morning, lunch, dinner, and a snack, right? So it was in her system. And then she would go behind that, and she was seeing me for therapy. So she had prescription drugs in her system. And let's not forget the alcohol. And I was just terrified. I'm like, I can't see this happen in front of me. I'm never going to come back to work if this ever happens. You know? Yeah. Phoenix says, oh my gosh, never thought about this happening in a therapist's office. That's scary. Yeah, absolutely. It is scary. There's a reason I no longer, there's a reason why I no longer work with individuals who have substance abuse issues that are prominent, you know, because there's a lot that needs to be managed there, and it can just be a really big issue. Sammy D, thank you for correcting me, because you're right. It is infanticide. I'm so sorry about that. Forgive me, guys. Infantilization. Okay. Did I say something else? Did I? If I said something else, I didn't mean it. I meant infanticide, not infantilization. Infanticide. That's what I meant. So thank you, Sammy. I'm going to star your comment. Infanticide is when a parent kills their child, right? Because think of the term suicide. Well, this is kind of like a different version of it, and it's infanticide. Infantilization is different, so I apologize for that. Okay, now you can see that a therapist also makes mistakes. Okay. And I usually watch these live chats back. So if I misspeak or if I say something, look in the comments section, because usually I'll go back and say, okay, correction, you know. So keep your eyes open in the chat box, not the chat box, the comments section, usually after these live chats. Laura O'Neill says emotional blackmail is common also in our families of origin. I went no contact 20 years plus ago. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay. Yeah. The technologist says, or demand that what you see us as adults doing openly, you must pretend like you don't see it. Do what I say, not what I do. Yeah, that's a good point too. Agree. All right, guys. Unfortunate Truth. Hello. Welcome. Glad to see you and welcome to the channel. Says, wow, the fake hugs, comments from others. I never considered others' experience such a weird fake disconnection hug thing either. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes in these family dynamics, yeah, there's really no physical affection. You're right. And sometimes there can be hugs, but they're like those hugs that you just pat them. You're like, okay, I'm done with you kind of thing. It's not a hug like I love you and I cherish you and I care about you, you know? So that's pretty sad. Yeah. Tooth Sloth Jules says, you wouldn't catch me doing any kind of legal drug, not with China developing sophisticated fake substitutes for prescription meds. Oh my Lord. Let's not go there. Let's not do this, Tooth Sloth Jules. That's for a whole other night. Thank you so much, G-Nog. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it did stress me out. Thank you so much. And you're sweet and special for saying that. And I'm sure you're sweet and special in your own life. So right back at you. Thank you for that. That's so kind. Okay, guys. I think we should pause here. I'm just scrolling through really briefly. Wow. Orlando says, Tamara, you're hitting on so many issues of my life. Yeah, absolutely. I really hope these conversations are helpful to Orlando. Um, the technologist says, wow, this is my entire childhood. Yeah. Joanne Burrow says, intolerance of disability. I was deaf. Oh, I'm so sorry. Intolerance of disability is also an issue. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that's also an issue as well. All right, guys, I think we should pause. Gamzee says the 5 stages is real. I deep in and out of grief and acceptance now. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it? It's real. It's once you finally look at things and it's clear, you say, oh my God. And you look at it and you say, oh my God, this is really what it is, and then that's when your body and your mind goes through those grief stages and it's pretty hard. Guys, thank you so much for being with me in tonight's live chat. You guys are always a treat, and I so appreciate you. Know that you are not just a number on my channel. There's psychology to the reason why I welcome each and every one of you. Do I get tired? Yes, but I like going through each and every one. Why? Because I appreciate each and every one of your spirits, your hearts, your minds on the channel. So just know that you're appreciated. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday and Sunday. Hopefully I will be posting a video Monday night, so stay tuned for that. All right, guys, love you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.